If you lose your way tonight, that's how we know the magic's right. You know, the devil can withstand the crucifix alone, but there are a few things the prince of principalities cannot abide by. And in time, you will learn what these are. Prayer has meaning, but its true power lies in consistency. Ritual has meaning, but its true power lies in timing. Abstinence has meaning, but its true power lies in endurance. Love has meaning, but it is wasted on the ignorant. When you have no price, you're priceless. When you see that loss is inevitable, you are fearless. Every day I wake up, regardless of how I'm feeling, I try my best, brighten my parents' day, and before, I would do my best to buy my dog Coco. My dog Coco lived to be 14 and 3/4, and she lived a great life. Now I'm horrified at the standards people set around me, but I still try and do the right thing by my family. And I feel terrible for the animals who are required to live outside, bearing audible witness to this horrific chaos. But Coco lived a peaceful life. My childhood was peaceful. The evil creeps in SpaceX and Space Force have ruined this area. But my parents and I persist. My neighborhood persists, and is much more peaceful than some because I bled to make it so. I did this for the people that I owed, that Coco owed, and I will never forget their kindness. Oh, and the Berlin creep and his cop neighbor finally took the Trump van signs out of their yard. I wonder why. Oh. I think after a period of time, incredibly intense winds, fires, droughts, people will finally get the message that when you destroy nature, the primordial state of the world reduces them to sludge. That only through respecting God's balance can we truly flourish. But there will still be evil that hides deep underground, reigning over hell with stolen resources. Who will rise once more to strip the land? The Lord knows how many times that's already repeated itself. Hey guys, you hear of this new thing? They call it food. Red Delicious apples are such a psyop, right? Probably the biggest of all time. Because the first part's honest, and the second part is a lie. You read the label, you see it's red, you take it home, only to find out it's not delicious at all. Might be good for fermenting into a cider, though. Not sure. It's like bar club or dating, right? Club dating, bar dating, club dating, you know. For me, it's the gala apple. But I'd be lying if I didn't say the pink ladies were fire. Ladies, you ever met a man that needs saving more than you who tries to save you? That's rough, ain't it? You know, the more you save others, the more situations you find the solutions to, in case you fall into them. You know, a lot of people talk about these two guys, Milton Friedman and Ludwig von Mises. But I've never read them, because I've already deduced that the entire zeitgeist of that philosophy is tricking people on behalf of black markets to dissolve law and order. Genuine law and order, not the people who put the words law and order on their uniforms and then go off and commit the same sort of atrocities that people just doing their jobs always have without a moral compass. Curtis Yarvin and Elon Musk are horrifically dysgenic, ugly people and have aligned with forces that hate God. Fascinating. Interesting how that works. If you grew up in the 90s, I'll remind you, this is the foundation of skeptic atheism. And it carries Milton's torch. You know, the scientific concept of thetans from Scientology, it's actually supposed to be pronounced Thetan. Doesn't that sound familiar? Almost sounds like Satan, right? Having a high Satan level gets you into a higher rank in the Scientology church. Fascinating. Just like Satan and Saturn have similar sounds, right? Am I right? I think so. Gotta remind people that Harvard has blacklisted and expelled both tenured professors like Dr. Cornel West and students alike for merely speaking up for Palestinians for years, and that Columbia University is the #1 recruitment ground for young CIA agents. Or they scream at Trump over the censorship. I know it's not good. I don't agree with it. But he's not doing anything that's phenomenally different than what has already been happening beneath the covers, underneath the topsoil, essentially. But my subconscious perfectly directed a drill music video in my dream the other night. It was some kid with dreads stumbling around the street with an Uzi going, "If he dies, let him cry, If he dies, let him cry, I ain't got no feelings, I just leave him where I lie, brah. If he dies, let him cry, And the perspective was like all over the place, like sometimes like diagonally scraping the road at times. My subconscious I don't even listen to drill. My subconscious perfectly directed a drill video because it's very, well, it's tangible, is it not? How much that has affected people. How important that is to Chicago. You can't have nothing in Chicago these days. Nor should you. Nor should you. Once they renamed the Sears Tower to the Chicago Tower, it was Jover. You only become old when you stop taking the time to observe new things. But sometimes new things, they's bad. Just bad. You know, if you play Europa Universalis 4, an unavoidable mechanic actually teaches you an interesting part of history. Italy in the early 15th century was the birthplace of the modern era, whereas Russia would remain feudal until about the 18th century due to nomadic tribes maintaining their native cultures through the Renaissance. Mind you, not to confuse this with the Enlightenment, which is the equivalent of San Francisco smugshalites sitting around, huffing their own farts out of wine glasses because they were born into greatness. And see what the wages of that sort of sin are. See the fruits over in those fields. Fire, destruction, humiliation. Not very enlightening, if you ask me. But the Renaissance was a studying of history. And through the Renaissance, the papacy actually determined, hey, the Knights Templar are doing some of the worst things that people have recorded. They're doing it for fun. And, you know, that's exactly where the Masons came from. If you watch my episode, Anti-Zionism Special, which I'm working on the episode 2 of, it's probably going to come out sometime next week. Same with the Kiwi Farms tier list sometime this week. Very busy. Got a lot of stuff that I still haven't addressed that I have to address over time. Got stuff somewhat in order. I have to do some swapping. I have to do some training. And thankfully, we'll have a little extra help coming into town. Good. But at the moment, it is really rough transitioning from independent to a Marian order organization, and it's little bumpy, but we'll get through it because it's important, and I'll try my best. And if we can't do it the right way, we're not going to do it at all, but we're going to try our best, do what we can with what we've got. And after this is over, I'm going to join the board to be a representation on the board for the Scola. And that'll be important because without every part of the church, every group in the church, whether they think different things from other groups, they still need to have like one member to join the board and represent their area. Otherwise, it's just going to end up falling apart. I've noticed that actually firsthand. So I'm going to be the person on the board for the Scola. I've been invited. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be the head of the Scola. I'm the conductor, but I'm not the director. I'm not the administrator. That's handled by people who have been there for 40 years. A lot smarter than I am. As I said, there's this shorter, older man from a Jewish blood who is a good Catholic, who is a Iwo Jima veteran, and he is the ultimate administrator of the Scola. And every step of the way, I give respect to him. I do respect seniority, but I also respect genuine intelligence and insightfulness, and the fact that he is so, like, I remember how my grandfather looked at that age, and my grandfather was significantly taller, which does have an effect when you get up to that age. But he still lived to be 92, and he died from medical malpractice, not from old age. But this guy is so sharp. He is so on the ball, and I'm quite impressed. And he has lots of wisdom in store. And he's told me about, the history of his ancestry and how they were Polish, Galician, Volhynian, and Silesian, and came from Ukrainian Jewish stock but converted. And it's fascinating because probably my greatest ancestor that has a name that I know of, Marie Theresa, mother of Marie Antoinette, she incorporated Silesia into the Holy Roman Empire. I think that's fascinating because what was Austria-Hungary? What was the Roman Empire? Other than the line of which they said the Ottomans would not cross. And effectively, if it wasn't for Austria-Hungary as a contiguous unit, not the creeps and pest, not the, various disparate bands of unacculturated peoples, but the Austro-Hungarian Empire itself, there would probably not be much of a Europe left in its own particular culture. But what would you see around the turn of the Prussian Revolution? You would see a destruction of lots of native European cultures to create this strange, first Protestant, then ultimately pagan culture of the Imperial Germans. That's very sad. Now, Bavaria would stay Catholic throughout the entire time, but it had its damage, and it had its after effects. So anyways, off of that aside, let's get back into it. The Italian city-states would be where the namesake of things like modernity and urbanity came from. Locations like Moderna and Urbino. They're reflective of this restructuring in the West around the 1400s, and it would kick off with a deep examining of history and ancient culture through the Renaissance. And that's exactly where, a lot of this greatness, and it didn't happen in pagan Rome. It happened through Christianity. It wasn't paganism that made Rome great. And the etymology of Latin shows that it was actually their collaboration and their attentiveness to the various parts of the Roman Empire, not just Rome itself, that made Rome great. And that would continue through Christianity because these concepts aren't concepts that are arrested by the individualistic Remus and Romulus culture. Even though some people they're not they're not learned enough in history to skip past Roman aesthetics equals power. It is what it is, you know. Not many people seem to understand how huge Iran is. Apparently, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, and Donald Trump just prevented Israel from attacking Iran. Not many people seem to understand how huge Iran is. Not only is it smaller on the Mercator projection, which makes the center of the map much, much smaller than it actually is, and it makes the top of the map look much, much, much bigger than it actually is. The mountains around the Zagros range are absurd. It does not capture, the 2D map does not capture topographical depth. And around the Zagros mountain range up to the Mazandaran mountain range area, where you had like the strong long-term Persian culture persist through the Turkish acculturation. Tehran actually means land of the Turks. Andaran is very similar to Iran, but that's neither here nor there. Persia would actually regenerate up until about World War One, and then Persia would lose 2 million people through World War One. But I'm getting distracted. It's possible, but like invading Ethiopia or Tibet is extremely costly to actually secure anything. You could wage war against the country, you could start the crap, but you couldn't finish it. Not easily, not in a short amount of time, not cheaply, certainly not. Too many Marimots are like, I love Rhodesia, but I can't name 5 countries in the Holy Roman Empire. Hortler did nothing wrong. Because Muhammad pedophile. Israel's greater. Too many Marimots are like that. We gotta get it together. We gotta get it together and preserve what made America great. And what made America great is the hard work of people binding together the white picket fence, which is short because people had a high trust society and people were constantly trying to parasitize their neighbors and their communities and their areas, and then fly away in a super fast car or a super big truck or on a yacht or on a plane and just escape the consequences of their immediate actions, not spiritually, of course, but physically. That is not what made America great. That is what made America very, very, very poor. And it doesn't matter what your GDP is. It does not matter how much Nazi gold you have. What matters is your ability to collaborate and the spiritual health and wealth of your nation. Otherwise, just like Solomon's Israel, you will collapse and you'll take a lot of stuff down with you. We don't want America to be the Titanic. We want it to be, you know, even if it's just a noble steamboat, we want it to be consistent, persistent, last a long time, and lift a lot of people up. That's what America should be. And you know what? If you don't think like that, chances are you probably have a Ukrainian last name or a Hispanic last name, and your ancestors probably weren't born here, so you can buzz off. Oh, bye. No hate. No hate if you're just Ukrainian or just Hispanic or anything like that, but like you see it a lot. You see it a lot. It's very, very strange. And I'll get into that during the next anti-Zionism episode, how the Phoenician colonies made up a lot of southern Iberian cultures through, like, Granada would be one of the biggest Phoenician Carthaginian colonies, and would persist in its general philosophy all the way until it went into Mexico and synchronized with a lot of the native cultures to create Dios de la Muerte and stuff like that. So look forward to it, and I hope everybody has a good one. Hope everybody is having a great Holy Week. Keep it holy and have a good. Cheers.